Hello, everyone. It's Brian here from Massey's Main Entertainment. We're back again with a new video, but it's of one of my older series, and that was this album really that good? Today, I am joined by my good friend Sam St. John, now known as Americana Sam. Kind of a cool name. What's up, Sam? How you feeling? You feeling a little bit better, or just kind of
Yeah,
the same?
I'm fighting fighting a cold. So if you hear me, making weird noises, that's why that's happening. But I'm doing good enough to talk about this album.
That's good. Well, I always enjoy talking with you, Sam, and especially because I get to hear that Appalachian accent, and then it makes me miss home. It's been like 35 years here in Maine, so I pretty much have shed the Southern draw quite a bit, unless I go back home for any length of time, and then
Yeah,
it'll kind of creep back in. I did get a chance to catch your video of your top albums of the year. I think I've listened to four of them, and I really agreed with like the two of them that you picked. So I'm really kind of looking forward to this. Today we're going to be chatting about a band and album that was released like the year after I graduated. So I was actually in the Air Force during this time. So you can imagine that perhaps it wasn't like high on my listening
yeah,
goals for But now in retrospect, it's easily a top five album of that year for me, and included in my top albums maybe of the decade. So I said I'm speaking of the supergroup Traveling Wilburys and their first album, simply titled Volume One. It was released on October 18th, 1988. Yeah, like I said, it was their debut album, consisting of George Harrison, otherwise known as Nelson Wilbury, Bob Dylan, Lucky Wilbury, Tom Petty was Charlie Wilbury, Jeff Lynne was Otis Wilbury, and Roy Orbison was Lefty Wilbury. So the project was kind of a serendipitous thing. I think it was Harrison was looking for a B-side single, and this kind of led to this like impromptu collaboration with all these guys. So it has, it's kind of interesting is that, the group kind of has this really charming quality to them, and there's a little bit of camaraderie there. And I think this album has a little bit of humor as well when you kind of step back. Both critically and commercially acclaimed, reaching number 3 on the Billboard chart, earning Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group. Has many standout tracks and had appeared on a lot of end of year lists, most notably, I think, the top 50 for Rolling Stones magazine and the top 100 for NME's magazine for that particular year. Went on to be triple platinum in the United States. And unfortunately, Roy Orbison passed away, I think, in late December of that same year. After making that, so he wasn't around for their subsequent album, Volume 3. But we're here to talk about this one and its mass appeal. So, Sam, I'm curious to know your thoughts for sure. I know you're a big fan of a lot of these guys as solo artists. So, as always, I'll take the last word. But for now, you've got the floor, my man.
yeah. This was an exciting one. I know we we kind of planned this at the end of our last video, kind of off camera, when we talked about Bob Dylan. But yeah, this album, I've done specific videos on my channel revolving around this album. I've done a album, and a thing was what this album means to me, and what I've always said, at least in the last 10 years or so. This is the album that really got me into music. Not that I wasn't listening to music before. I was listening to um, oldies, and my dad loved Frank Sinatra. We had Beatles and Beach Boys greatest hits that I was listening to growing up. I was listening to, as a kid, boy bands. Like I liked to listen to like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys when I was 5 and 6 years old. But this is the album which I was introduced to in 8th grade. So kind of that sweet spot for kids, 13, 14 years old, to when you're kind of figuring out yourself. And this album single-handedly got me through the 8th grade. I was in a new school, very rigorous school, and all the nights of long homework and new teachers and new faces, new kids. I was a nervous wreck trying to get through this school, and I listened to this album on repeat. I had the 2 CD box set that included the second record and then also the DVD with a little mini documentary. It's like 20 minutes long. But I knew George Harrison. I knew, Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison. I knew, Free Fallin' and a couple of Tom Petty songs. Dylan was only somebody that I, kind of remotely knew. I didn't really get into Dylan until about 10th grade. And Jeff Lynne, I didn't know his name at all. I didn't really know anything about ELO when I was in 8th grade. But, hearing his voice on here, I was like, well, that guy's got a silky smooth voice. He can harmonize with anything. And obviously, reading later on that he's pretty much the producer. And, then you see his name all over everything in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Especially with all these guys, here, they were, several of them were instrumental in Roy Orbison's comeback in the late 80s, with the Black and White Night concert. And I just started getting into the solo work of all these guys. And from that point, it was like a root system just started growing. And I was able to, listen to all the Dylan stuff. I mean, obviously, I had the Dylan connection with this record. And then 2 years later, when I was starting to get into his solo work, could kind of go back to this. And then Tom Petty, my dad made me like a Napster mix on a CD and gave me that with, it also had some Jeff Lynne tunes on it. So I was getting into more and more of these, solo songs. And then I got a George Harrison, greatest hits. And, it just it grew from this record. And this record, again, this shaped the music that I love now. In terms of the songs in this record, obviously you have there's bookend tracks with Handle with Care and End of the Line. I mean, you can't pick two more perfect songs. Handle with Care with that kind of jangly open, intro to that track, that down, 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 and there's great guitars. And then you have the slide guitar that George Harrison's playing at the end. It's got that great video where they're all in the warehouse around one mic. It shows like the young photos of them when they were kids or early teens. It's a great thing to see. And obviously, they're looking at Roy Orbison as kind of like their, cool uncle, because, they all looked up to Roy Orbison. So he was like, even though it was George Harrison's band, Roy Orbison was like, all right, this is the guy that we need to, straighten up and, shake his hand when he walks in the room. And they all talk about that in the documentary. But you look at some of the songs on here that aren't Handle with Care, End of the Line, and End of the Line with that great intro too, with the 12-string guitars. Just again, another great video too, when they're on the train, and they have the Roy Orbison empty rocking chair during his verse, because he had, like you said, he just passed away a few months prior. So this is some of his last work. But you listen to the song Dirty World. I mean, that's some of that humor that you're talking about with Bob Dylan. Rattle is kind of a great little like rockabilly tune that Jeff Lynne is singing. Pretty simple, like Carl Perkinsy kind of guitar. Last Night is, again, kind of tongue-in-cheek Tom Petty, kind of almost like a noir kind of song with Roy Orbison doing like the middle 8 section. And then Not Alone Anymore just spotlights the Roy Orbison voice, that clean voice. And again, at this point, Roy Orbison was in his very early 50s. Even though you look at him, you think that he's in his 70s. He looked much older than he was. But Not Alone Anymore is just this gorgeous tune, especially the last note. It's stunning. And I know they talked about in the documentary how they were all watching him from behind the glass in the recording studio, and they were just, their jaws were on the floor, hearing this guy do what he did so effortlessly. And then you go to side 2 with the Dylan opener, Congratulations, just kind of a slow ballad with that great, again, slide guitar that George Harrison's playing. Just kind of this melancholy thing, congratulations for breaking my heart. Congratulations, you're tearing it all apart. It's great Dylan there. Heading for the Light kind of sounds like almost like a What Is Life kind of tune. It's very upbeat, sunshiny kind of song by George Harrison. It could have been one of those songs, like what if the Beatles had made it to the 80s? It probably might have sounded something like that. Because I wouldn't have been surprised, had the Beatles gone to the 80s, that they would have ditched George Martin a couple of times and they would have gotten Jeff Lynne. I think Jeff Lynne's path still would have crossed with the Beatles, and that's just one of those songs. It's classic George Harrison. It's got that spirituality to it that George was always known for. It's got some great bars by Jeff Lynne kind of in the middle, so it's really great. Margarita. Now this is just kind of like some might call it a throwaway. I don't. I think it's this really cool kind of like vignette kind of song. And it's got one of the greatest lines ever recorded, which is the last line when Tom Petty says she wrote a long letter on a short piece of paper. It's just it's a great tune. Again, you never know where the song is going with all the different parts. The second to last track, I know you'll probably talk about this one a bit, but Tweeter and the Monkey Man, great story song. It's the longest song on the record. It's Bob Dylan at his finest. Again, with that great line, in Jersey, anything's legal as long as you don't get caught. Lots of Bruce Springsteen, kind of elements to it. And it's just one of those great songs that I think stands up with Dylan's best. Even though it's kind of hidden away on this record. I love Tweeter and the Monkey Man. But yeah, I mean, I could talk about this record a lot. I love it. I know we'll probably do a ranking a little bit later, but I think this record is just stunning. I can listen to it, never get tired of it.
Yeah, I agree with you like wholeheartedly here. First thing, I mean, you talked about a lot of the other stuff. I mean, I was going to talk about Dirty World being maybe the most humorous song on here. And I did have a note that had Rockabilly down for Rattled as well, that I thought it had that kind of sound to it. And then what I want to talk about a little bit is like Heading for the Light. I thought when I listened to it, at first I'm going, see, that should have been the B-side song that George was looking for. All that other stuff that they were doing. That would have been the perfect track to be that B-side for the single that they were working on. I mean, I'm thinking about what they were all doing in their lives at the time. I mean, obviously, Harrison, this must have been Cloud 9 time. This must have been, what he was working on. Full Moon Fever must have been what Tom was working on in his life as well. Obviously Jeff Lynne was busy producing some of these guys and doing other people's stuff. Mystery Girl, I think, came out around this time as well for Roy Orbison. Is that right? 89, maybe 88?
Yeah, Anything You Want, which they all, Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne co-wrote.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some like these guys had stuff going on. I mean, and all these were like really good albums as well. I mean, if somebody had a week albums coming out during that time, it might have been Dylan. It's good. I mean, it's kind of a nice filler for Dylan here until he got back on track in the early 90s and stuff. But I had that down for that. Not Alone Anymore. I mean, that went from a song for me to where I was like, I didn't even have it added to my playlist. And now it's probably like my third favorite song on the album. Because it's just so beautifully sung. And like you said, I'm like, Roy Orbison is just he's just on a different plateau. One of those guys that has a voice that immediately who it is. When he starts to sing. I mean, he's just got this wonderful thing. We spoke about, you spoke about Tweeter and the Monkey Man. I mean, I love the story to this thing. And when you listen to it, I mean, filled with humor and, great storytelling, action, all sorts of other stuff. And it's just such a weird title that I think there's no way the record company was going to want to ever release it as a single based on the subject matter alone. I think that's where they figured if they buried it, the record company will just let it slide in, right? Because this is just still the late 80s. And, there's still the Tipper Gores of the world that were trying to ban stuff, and take stuff out of the music industry. So I said, they probably buried it on the second side thinking, well, the censors aren't going to say anything about that.
Right.
But then, like you said, maybe two of the better bookend tracks of any album with Handle with Care and End of the Line. The harmonies on End of the Line is where Jeff Lynne really shines here, as well as, his production on the album overall. That's all I'll say because you touched on every track anyway. But I mean, I don't know, from a score standpoint, what do you think? I mean, I've listened to it probably 10 times in my life, 3 in the last 2 weeks. So
this is one of those albums. I mean, I didn't even need to listen to it because I've listened to this album easily 100, 150 times easily. again, it got me through 8th grade, and then I listened to it a lot in high school as well.
Why don't you give me your 3 favorite tracks and then give me a score, maybe? Yeah.
In no particular order, Tweeter and the Monkey Band, End of the Line, and then maybe I might just go Margarita, Tweeter and the Monkey Band, End of the Line. Those last 3, just because I love how goofy Margarita is, but also again love that line. I love the whole Dylan, it was in Pittsburgh late one night kind of part. I just think it's great. Not that they're the strongest tracks, with the exception of maybe Tweeter and the Monkey Man. But yeah, I mean, right now those are my favorite. But I mean, I could say Not Alone Anymore, Dirty World with the crazy ending where they're kind of going in around. He loves your electric gun planks. He loves your red bell pepper. They were just reading clips from a magazine and essentially saying random lines for that song. But no, anybody that knows me and follows my channel knows that this album is in my top 10 favorite albums of all time.
Wow. That's a big score then.
And again, anybody that knows me knows if the only albums that I ever give a 10 out of 10 to are the ones in my top 10. That's what kind of scorer I am. So this album is a 10 out of 10 for me.
10 out of 10.
Yep.
All right. I think if I rank them, I would have Tweeter and the Monkey Man definitely number 1 for me. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with End of the Line, probably number 2. And then, like I said before, Not Alone Anymore. I'm going to put that in my top 3 now. I think it's justifiably so.
Yeah.
Maybe there might be some, what they call that, primacy, recency. The last thing I heard, and I have a little bit more fondness for, and that could change obviously in a year, but
sure.
I'm going to go with that. From an overall score, yeah, I've already said that I'd have it, pretty high on some of my lists. I think I'm going to give it, maybe it has in my mind, 2 tracks are a little weaker. So I'm going to give it like a 9.25.
All right.
Right in that range. If there's a couple tracks where I'm like, but I mean, that's me being really picky. I mean,
yeah.
So, I'll give it a 9.25. I think that's pretty fair. So
that's pretty good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Sam. Is there any upcoming videos that you have that you're working on you want to tell people about to get an opportunity to watch?
I've done a couple of recent ones. I've got right now an Americana tag going on that I'd really like to see kick off some more steam. I did it last year, and it picked up pretty well last year. But this year it's been a little bit slower. I think a lot of people are waiting until the first of the year. But I have an Americana tag. It's on my channel. 15 questions about Americana music. And yeah, I just did a video yesterday for my top 12 albums of the year. I've probably got a couple more year-end videos. I'll probably do another maybe top 10 reissues of the year. So something like that. And then I'm planning on doing at least one Christmas video. So that should be coming up within the next couple of weeks.
Nice. Well, we're taking a little bit of a break for Rich and I and those guys, and when we get back on the year, New Year, we'll do finish our top songs for each year, going up to probably maybe 1979. It depends on how the guys feel about going much further than that. And then I'm going to be doing a 60s, obviously 60s album tournament too, probably come in February to probably no later than the 1st of March. We'll try to get that kicking off and try to do it in conjunction with the NCAA tournament type of stuff. So, and Sam, you're a part of that,
Yep.
part of that thing. So I'm really looking forward to that. So until next time, everybody, you guys have a good holiday. Enjoy your Christmases out there. Please be safe. Make sure you say I love you to all your friends and family as much as you can, because you never know what tomorrow brings. So until next time, guys, take care. Bye-bye.